So hello everyone. We today welcome our event, a holiday tip battle, and we have three presenters. And first is Agata. Agata knows also the Tableau fair, and also which. She also Tableau ambassador and 2025. And by day, Agata is a Tableau consultant and trainer at New Data Labs. So bravo from Agata. And she show us 7 tips, I think. And second is Serena. Second person is Serena. Serena working at the information lab. She working data analyst consultant. Also, 5-time winner with of the date of Tableau Public and Tableau future author and Tableau public ambassador in 2024-2025 and DataFam Slam winner 2024. And I forget Agata two winner as DataFam Slam in this year. So so very applause for that. And second and last but not least person Dani. Dani is a senior data and execution lead at Virgin Media, and she also won British Data Awards and Tableau featured author and DataFam Slam in 2024 champion. So it's a DataFam Slam crew in this boat. So it's very interesting person. And so we start to the battle, and I stop sharing. And Agata, you can start for this.
Okay, welcome everybody. I would like also to welcome everybody on behalf of our 2 and Polish Tableau user group. And I will start with a few tricks, and I promise for those who've been to last week to DataFam in London that I won't repeat anything I have shown earlier. So expect something slightly newer or at least fresher than what you have seen last week. And let me share my screen. Lovely. So I will start with a tip that I have learned from blog of Fleur-Latch Twins, which is about showing an overlay container with instructions in a dashboard, the easiest way to do that. Originally, the tip probably has to be came from Zach Bowders, so that's a big shout to him. And what he has suggested, I will use and add to that a little bit of my personal touch to make it slightly more different. Okay, so I've got my random dashboard, nothing extraordinary. I add a new sheet in which I will place my instructions. So, okay, I want to call that instructions. Take care to have a nice title, not most important, but it occurs to be useful. So I make it blue, big, bold, and nice. Lovely. A little bit of spacing is in front of that. Lovely. The main part of the tip is that you need to use a peel with average of 1. And it won't work if you use any other value. It has to be average of 1. I've got it. Now I change my my chart type to shape. Once I've got shape, I will use transparent shape, which I've got somewhere here. I guess it's here. You can't see it, so it's transparent for sure. I apply it, nothing here. I make the whole thing entire view, and the only thing I have to do is to get rid of all these lines and axes. So I get rid of my axis. Not edit axis, but get rid of it. Show header. Okay, and I get rid of all the lines. Format, lines, and no grid lines. No zero lines, no axis rulers, and just in case, no axis ticks. It's clean. Lovely. That's what I need. Now I go to my dashboard. I make it floating, the instructions sheet. I add it to my dashboard just to cover most of it. Great. And I want that to be transparent. So I make it quickly transparent. Format, bucket of the paint. I get rid of the background behind. Now I want to give it some shading behind, but not in the sheet, but as an object in my dashboard. So I go to layout, add here some gray behind, make it slightly more transparent so that I could see what's underneath. And now to use the title here, I will format my title again, format, and add it some shading behind, picked from the screen color. Okay. And now I've got my perfect overlay container on which I can place my instructions. How to do that? Well, I right-click on anything I would like to attach instruction to, add, annotate, point, and write inside whatever I need. When you click here, nothing happens. Okay, that looks good. So I just click OK, and I've got my instruction. I can, of course, edit it and format a bit. So I go to formatting, and formatting of the thing is lovely, because you can add here even a very rounded corners, which is kind of exception in Tableau, at least right now. Okay, now the only thing I have to do, I can add this instruction anywhere I want, and I can do that pretty quickly. The very last thing I have to do is to add to that a show height button and make it not visible. Okay, great. And probably I would like to change the icons, so I will go here for item hidden. I would like to have X, no, not X, I won't have information. And then for my item shown, I want to have X, and now it should work perfectly. Okay, oh, I didn't click OK, my fault. So edit button again. Tiny tip, if you double click, it will work as well. So item shown, choose X, open, item hidden, choose info, open, OK, and it should work. I can make it even bigger. And now when I click on it, it will work perfectly. Great. If I'm here, the dashboard is almost perfect, though a couple of things are not working very well in it. Actually, and the most frustrating for me are tooltips which are for nothing. So how to get rid of that very quickly and from the dashboard level? If I click on it and go to worksheet, I've got tooltip option here, which open tooltip editing window, and I'm clicking show tooltips and OK, I can get rid of the tooltip very quickly and from the dashboard level. There's one thing which is even more annoying when I've got in tooltip a field that I'm not interested in, like this max sales along table. That's awful. So how to get rid of that? Well, for that I have to get inside, but then if I click on the peel that I want to exclude from the tooltips, I just unclick including tooltip, and it should work perfectly now. And one final tiny tip that has something to do with showing of my dashboard. One moment. Okay, great. I had some technical problems for a moment. Well, you probably know that we can get to a view of our report that looks like this and allows us easy to move our dashboards and views from one place to another. That's nice. And what I have just discovered recently and love really is that when you want to go back to the previous view, you just need to double click and you're there. So pretty nice thing. And now I will show you a little bit of playing with totals. But before I do that, just look at that. I have just removed my grid lines and they are still there. I hate grid lines. What's the problem here? Well, I have removed my grid lines locally. I want to remove them just everywhere in the whole workbook. How to do that? I go to Format, Workbook, and here underneath there's something new, color palettes. That's something that has appeared last week. But then you've got lines and grid lines here. So if you switch off the grid lines from the place, they should disappear in the whole workbook at once. Very useful. I love the feature. Okay, I have removed that. So now a little bit about playing with totals. If you've been here last year, you probably remember that I was showing how to show all the totals at once. If you double click at totals, all the possible totals will appear just at once. Okay, lovely, but I do not want my subtotals. How to get rid of them? And here we get to the tricky part. You know, every time there is something to do in Tableau and I have to explain it to people that I'm training, I say, if you don't know what to do, either right click or click on any caret, any arrow like that you'll find anywhere. And it works always, with one exception. Totals. With totals, if you want to remove them, you have to left click. So I left click and I've got the remove here and I got rid of my subtotals. But still, my grand total is so big that I hardly can see everything else. And there is lots and lots of free space, which is just a waste. So what can I do? Well, first I can left click on it and hide the bar. So I choose hide and it's not here, but I want my number. So how to get the number back? This time I need my right click. So I right click on grand total, go to format. And if I'm in format, one moment, I have problem with my screen, so I have to repair that. Otherwise, yes, it's back. Okay, if I'm in my format, now I choose the right field, some sales, go to pane, and then choose here, show at the default value. And look, I do not have my bar. Everything fits perfectly, but it's down here. And one more thing I would like to do with that is to put that above everything. So for that, again, I go to my, not left click, right click. And here I've got column totals to top, which makes it top. And the final question is how anybody is gonna memorize how to do that, what to do with left click and what to do with the right click. The answer is do not try to memorize that. Just check both. It's quick anyway. So that's about my totals management. And now I would like to go to filtering of the dates. What I've got on the chart is sum of sales with running total. So it's growing with every next month. For those who do not take the encrypted part of the presentation, which is in Polish, these are the names of months in Polish. I know they are nothing like English, nothing like anything from Latin, but they work somehow. So just believe me, these are months. And I've got it, and you can see that the number grows from something very small to something very high. What I would like to get is to get just a part of the chart. So start like, for example, from here and get it to here. So for that, I thought I might use a filter, date limit filter, which would be something very simple. Strange, it was on the wrong window. Okay, so if my date is greater than minimum date parameter and smaller than maximum date parameter, that's what I would like to take. Great. But if I put that into my filter, true, apply, okay, I'm not, and change the dates. Let's make the start from January 24. Okay, January 24, let's try like that. Okay, 3rd, lovely. Nothing, I do not get what I want. The running total has starting being counted again from the beginning. That's not what I want to get. I could repair that with a calculation, but the calculation would be very complicated. And just to show you how much, I've got example of such a calculation. Well, that's hard to remember. That's difficult. We can do that different way. Okay. So I get rid of that and I try again. What I can do is to go to my axis and place, instead of fixed start and fixed end, my parameters here. So I start from minimum date parameter and end with maximum date parameter. And now we can see that it has taken just part of my chart, not everything. Okay, that's close to the end, but I've got one more tip, which is pretty much exciting for me, because I will create for measure values and for measure names. Well, everybody keep complaining that you cannot use measure names and measure values in calculations. Besides that, you cannot have double measure names and measure values in your calculations. And actually, you can do that. For that, you have to play a little with your data. Okay, it could be done without additional table, but that wouldn't be it would be worse for the performance reasons. So what I have done here with my data source, is it the one? Let me check. Yes, that's, if you look at that, there's original data source, just sample superstore, orders, people, returns, and that's normal. And we've got one additional table. What's the additional table? If you look at that, the original fields in that are just column, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, nothing big, and link, which is just once. And the link has been used to relate it to my original data model, where I used calculation with 1 to link that. So linking value on one side 1, linking value on the other side 1, and I just add these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I've got them extra, then I can go to my sheet and let's look for the calculation. I've got my 4 measures. What in this case would that be? Well, that's very simple. I'm just using case column, when 1, then sales, when 2, then profit, when 3, then quantity. And I could go, of course, further with more measures. I do not need right now more. So that's perfect. How my 4 measure values look like? Again, quite simple. Case, minimum column, I need to aggregate that. When 1, some sales, when 2, some profit, when 3, some quantity. Why is it so fun? Well, because now when I take my date and add here, for example, months, and then use my 4 measures, 4 measure values and 4 measure, okay, 4 measure values and then 4 measure names to color, I've got 3 measures. There is also null, which I can hide, not to show it to my customers. Lovely. That's nice. Can I use that in calculations? Well, yeah, quite easily. I can multiply that by, let's say, 25, and my axis will change. Now I end at 120,000. Now it's way more. So that's doable. Okay, lovely. I go back with that. And can I add a second set of measure names and measure values to that? Definitely I can. So now I take my original measure names. Okay. Original measure names to filters. I take here just the measures I didn't use, discount and profit ratio, apply, okay. Now I take my measure values, add them to rows. Lovely. For discount, I definitely need to change my aggregation to average. Great. I need in the shelf here to add measure names to color, and I've got the 4 measures now. It's just enough to make them dual axis, and that's it. And if I wanted to make the 2 dashed line, that's not a problem. Okay, so that's great. And what else you can use it for? Well, here I've got an example of the table where you can choose by yourself how many columns you want to have and what measures you want to use in each of them. And that's done with exactly the same technique. Okay, thank you a lot.
Wow, Agata, thank you. Thank you for presentation tips, and it's a game changer. So now we voting which tips is favored from Agata, and
I'm really curious which one you will like most.
yeah, we can join for this vote, and you choose which tips is favored from Agata. So Fox measure names and measure values. Yeah, I agree. That is game changer in Tableau. Okay, so I think is the most favorite tips is last. So Fox measure names and measure value. So bravo, Agata. Thank you very much. I stopped screening and we're back for this vote, and now I give you vote to Serena, and you can share your screen and present your tips.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Pre-warning, I might be coughing a lot through this because I've got a really awful cough, so I'm sorry if you have to hear that. First of all, those are great, Agata. I feel like you might have already won, so let's see how this goes. So welcome to my segment of the tip battle. I'm Serena. When I was thinking about what tips I wanted to do, I currently teach Tableau to sort of beginners, people who haven't used Tableau before, and I have a group that I'm teaching at the minute, and I kind of ask them what tips or what things I've shown them that they think are really cool. So these tips are quite beginner friendly and are a mix of things that I've shown them in class that they've been like, oh, that's really cool. So hopefully there's something in there for everyone. I'm going to go to my first tip, and my first tip is creating a custom date variable. So with dates in Tableau, if you've used dates before, you have the ability to kind of drill in and drill up of dates. So you can kind of change the level of detail of the date that you're looking at. So for example, here I'm looking at the month of order date. If I hover over the axis at the bottom, I can drill in and drill out of that date field, which can be really useful. But can also be frustrating if you're working with maybe a client or someone who doesn't quite understand Tableau, or you don't want people clicking around and kind of messing things up, basically. Now, the way to get around that is by creating a custom date variable. So custom date variables allow you to kind of, take a date part or a date value of your date field So kind of changing the level of detail of your date. So for example, instead of having it at the day level, you could have it just at the month level or the year level whilst maintaining it as a date. So what I'm going to do that is go to my date field. I've kind of got them all separated out here. I'm going to go to my date field, click the drop-down menu and go to create. We've got this option here called custom date. So I'm going to select that. And then I've got a few different ways that I can kind of choose to create that date. So I can choose what type of date I want to look at. If I just want to look at years, I just want to look at quarters or months, or other combinations. For this example, I'm going to recreate what I can see in my view. So I'm going to select months. And then I have two options. I've got date part and date value. Date part works a little bit like the date part, well, it works just like the date part function in Tableau, where you basically will just get like a number instead of your months. So for example, January would be 1, December would be 12. Date value will basically do like a date trunk. So every day that sits in January is suddenly going to get grouped together. Every day that sits in February is going to get grouped together. So your kind of level of detail of your date field changes depending on how you set it. So I'm going to select months and I'm going to select date value and hit OK. And we can see my date field has appeared down here. It's got the little date symbol, so we know that it's still a date variable. What I'm going to do is bring out my month's date there, and I'm going to bring this one in. And you see that it automatically comes in sort of at that month level. If I hover over my axis, I don't have the ability to change it. And even if I try change kind of the date element of this field, so say I try to set it as a week, we see that the values on the axis change a little bit, but my bars don't actually change because my date field now is just set at that month level. And this can be useful for creating parameters. It can be useful for creating charts that you don't want people clicking around and kind of accidentally exploding the data into days or whatever, and getting worried. So that's my first tip, the custom date variable. Going to move on to the second one. This one is really useful, and yeah, I use this all the time. So when you're creating calculations, you can drag things in and out of your calculations, and I'll show you what that looks like. So for this example, I want to create a year-to-date variable for profit. So I want to see my profit year-to-date, and my dates can be based on my parameter up here, which is currently set to the 8th of February, 2025. Now, when you're creating a calculated field, apologies, sometimes you want to kind of test what you're writing in your field out as you write it, but closing your calculation down and then opening it back up can get a little bit long-winded. You have to go back and find it in the data pane. Just gets a bit messy. So what I'm going to do is create my calculated field, and I'm going to call this profit YTD, so profit year to date, and I'm going to just start creating my calculation. So one thing I can do is drag elements into my calculation as I'm writing it. So to create year to date, I want to say if my year is the same as the year my parameter. So I'm actually just going to drag my year variable up here as it is. So drag that into my calculated field, and it sets it at the date part level of which it's kind of computed in the view. So if my year is the same as my year of my parameter, and I'm going to drag that same calculation in there and just replace it with my parameter like so. That's the first bit of my calculation. And then I also want it to be if my date variable, so if order date is less than or equal to my parameter as well. So I'm just going to write that like so. Then I want to see my profit. I'm just going to end that. Now, that's my calculation. I think it might be right, but I could close it down, drag it in, see that it's wrong and have to open up my calculated field again. Or what I can do is actually highlight elements of my calculated field and drag it into my view. So I could just choose to test the first part of my statement and kind of see how that's working. So I'm going to drag that onto text. I can see in the background that it's giving me the kind of result of that text as I've dragged it in. Drag it off. Or I could choose to test my whole calculation whilst maintaining, like, having this calculation box open. So I'm going to highlight all of my calculation, pop it on text. I can see that that's working. That's kind of giving me my year-to-date profit that I want. So if I'm happy with that, take it out. I'm ready to close down my calculation. I know that I don't need to come back into it again. Hit OK. And now I can drag it in. I know it's working, and I can leave it there. So being able to drag things in and out of your calculations is, I think, a really useful tip when you're writing them, because yeah, I sometimes just forget where my variables are. And if I've got them in my view, I can quickly just pull them in and play around with them. Okay, my next tip. This is one that I think I learned quite late in the day, actually, and it's really useful. So sometimes when you're creating a view, you might want to have 2 fields on color, and you would be forgiven in thinking that that is not possible. So in this example, I've got, excuse me, I've got sales versus profit, a little scatter plot broken down by customer. And the scenario that I want to kind of investigate here is, who are my top 20 customers by sales? Who are my top 20 customers by profit? And do I have any that are in the same group, yes or no? So I've got 2 sets over here. I've got my top 20 customers by profit, and I have my top 20 customers by sales. Now, if I drag these onto color, you'll see that you can only really have one on color at a time. So I'm going to drag the first one onto color. Great, it's showing me my top 20 by profit. If I want to then also drag top 20 by sales onto color, I drag it on, it changes my view. I can see we're now looking at the top 20 sales, but I've lost that other pill for profit. So if I wanted to see them both at the same time, one thing I could do is create a lengthy calculation, which is saying if a customer is higher in profit and lower in sales, high in sales, low in profit, or whatever, I could write a long calculation. Or what I could do is do this little trick to put both items on color. So I currently have sales on color. What I'm going to do is drag my profit pill, not onto color, but I'm going to drag it onto detail first so that it's on my marks card. That's just chilling there. What I'm then going to do is go to the little symbol here. I don't know if I can zoom in, see this little symbol here. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to change it from detail to color. And you'll notice that I now have both my fields on color, which wasn't possible before. Which, yeah, really useful. Now, this doesn't work if you're working with a measure and a dimension, or 2 measures, I think. It's only working with 2 dimensions, as in kind of like fields that are categories. But it's a great way to be able to kind of layer them up and then do a little bit of investigation. So, for example, here, I can now see, if I expand this, I've got my bottom sales, top profit. I've got my top sales, bottom profit, top sales, top profit, and bottom sales, bottom profit. I've kind of got them segmented out. So I found a little trick there for you. Okay, tip number 4. This one is really useful when thinking about performance, especially if you're working with a really big data set. So when you're bringing things into your view, sometimes you want to kind of pre-aggregate them before you look at them, but you don't always want to create a calculated field when you don't need to. So my first example of this is if I wanted to see total customers by region. What I would do, first of all, is bring in region onto rows, and then I want to see total customers. So what you might do, if you didn't know this trick, is to bring customer name onto columns, which is going to look something horrible like that, where it's bringing in every single one of my customers. And I can see, I don't know if you can see that, but I've got 1,500 marks in my view. If you had like 2 million customers, you're probably going to be waiting for this page to load quite a while because it's trying to render every single customer in this view. Ultimately, what I want to do is click the drop-down menu on customer name and change it to account distinct so that I can get my bars to see how many customers I have per region. But in bringing in customer name and then changing it to my count distinct, I first have to render every customer name. And that's, can really slow us down. I'm sure people might have faced that before where they've accidentally pulled in a variable with loads of different things and it's just kind of loading for a while. So to get around that, what we can do is, it's kind of like one of Agata's tips. Instead of left selecting, right selecting our variable when we drag it in. So right select. Got my lefts and rights mixed up. So I'm going to go to customer name down here. I'm going to right select, drag it onto columns, and that will bring up this little box here where we get to choose how we're kind of bringing in our customer. So we can either bring it in as its own variable, or I could choose to do my count distinct, which is what I want to look at. So I can click on that, and it's going to bring it in straight as count distinct. So getting past that rendering of every customer name. Now, this is also useful when we're working with dates. So I'm going to keep my customers and put them down here. And this time I want to see my total customers by a continuous month. The same trick applies with date variables. So Obviously with the date variable, I could bring it in. It will automatically set itself to a discrete year. And then I can click the drop-down menu and go and find my continuous month. Or I can save myself a little bit of time and I can just take that pill from the data pane. Again, right select and drag, drop it into columns, and then I get that pane come up straight away, so I can choose what type of date variable I want to see. In this scenario, I want my continuous month, which is the green one down here. Hit OK. And there we go. It brings it in straight away exactly how I want to see it. Again, just saving a little bit of time and performance, if anything. So yeah, that is tip number 4. Moving on to tip number 5. So you may have seen on Tableau Public really beautiful formatted KPIs where you've got a percentage value in the KPI that's dynamically changing color depending on whether it's positive or negative. Now, if you want to create that in a single sheet like I've got here, there's the ways that you may think you'd need to do it don't actually work. So for example, if I chose to put an item on color, it's going to color my whole view. If I choose to go into my label and actually just highlight my percentage, currently it's positive, so I might be forgiven in thinking I'm going to highlight it as blue when it's positive. Hit OK. If I change my parameter to a value which I know is negative, it's still showing me my positive color. So I don't have the ability to decide if it's blue for positive or orange for negative or whatever. I can't dynamically color that one label within my view. So there's a little trick which we can do to create basically 2 labels, color them positive and negative, and whichever one exists at that moment in time will show, and then you can kind of dynamically color them. So I will create these calculations and kind of talk you through how this works. So I've got my percentage change value, which is giving me this percentage comparison of year-to-date sales, like year on year. So we can currently see this value is 95% lower than 2024. What I'm going to do is create 2 calculations, one that will return this value if it's positive, and another that will return this value if it's negative. And I'll show you what those look like. So my first calculated field, oh, didn't need to do that. It's going to be a positive KPI. And I'm just going to say if my, let me drag and drop it in. If my percentage is greater than 0, or maybe greater and equal to 0, then I want to see my percentage. Hit end. It's going to sit down there. And then I'm going to create the same for my negative one. So, oh gosh, clicking everywhere, sorry. I'm just going to duplicate that one, and let's edit the duplicate. And this is going to be my negative KPI. And I'm going to say this time, if it's less than 0, then I want to see my percentage change. Hit OK, and I've got these sat down here. I actually I no longer need my actual percentage value, because this is always going to return the percentage regardless if it's positive or negative. Whereas these ones, my negative will only return the value if it's negative. Otherwise, it's just going to return nothing. And the same for my positive. It will return the value if it's positive. Otherwise, it's going to show us nothing. So I'm going to take this one off, and I'm going to bring these 2 onto my labels. I want to format them as percentages. So let me just do that, like so. Format that as a percentage. And, oh, not my tooltips. I'm now going to play around my labels. So let me make this bigger. The trick to doing this trick is to put them side by side so that they're always in the same place, because one's always going to exist and one's never going to exist. And they'll kind of alternate depending on whether the positive is the value it should be showing or the negative. So I'm going to put them both here side by side. And what I want a size 18. Let's make it like that, bold. And now I can select different colors for my positive and negative accordingly. So my positive, I'm going to make blue. My negative, I'm going to make orange. I'm going to hit OK, and we can see that only my orange value is now showing. So the blue one, because the percentage currently is not positive, it's just returning nothing, meaning I can just see my negative value. If I change my date now, that's also still negative. There we go. My positive value shows, and it's a different color. So I've got dynamic colors. The final thing I want to do is just add back in those little arrows I had before. And that's a little formatting trick, which hopefully you don't know, but it can be my sort of sub tip within this one. I've got my text ready here, so I'm just going to copy this in. When we format our variables, as I did here, so I'm going to right click on the variable and hit format. I can format the numbers as one of these pre-configured options, or I can go into a custom format. And in here, I can actually put in basically anything I want to my variables. I could add in text, I could add in a shape, sort of emoji, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to paste that in, and that's going to return this shape above my positive percentages and the downward arrow shape before my negative percentages. So I'm going to do that for that one, and I'm going to do the same for my negative. Oop. Let's pop those in. And there we go. We've got dynamic KPIs that change the color within one view, depending on whether the value is positive or negative. Okay, on to my very last tip. This one sounds silly. It's called a dummy highlight. So what you might have noticed if you've ever sort of played around with worksheet or dashboard actions is that when you apply an action and then click on something, Tableau has this habit of graying everything out, which is kind of annoying because it kind of sometimes takes away a little bit of the magic of the action. What I've done here is create a set action for this stat bar chart, so that if I click on a different bar, it's going to put that color selection to the bottom, so I can more easily compare it because the axis starts at 0, which is a cool trick in itself, actually, but not the one I'm going to talk through. But yeah, as I said, the highlighting default of Tableau is a little bit frustrating, and it can kind of take away the impact of what we're doing. So the solution here is to create a dummy highlight. Now, the way the dummy highlight works is what I'm going to do is just create a word, which is basically assigned to everything in my view. And then I'm going to tell Tableau that if I click on something in my view, and if it or anything else in my view shares that word, I want to highlight everything, basically. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like. I'm going to create a calculated field, and this is going to be my dummy variable. I'm going to call this dummy. And in quotation marks, I'm just going to write dummy. You could choose to put any text in there. So yeah, you don't have to write dummy. But that's what I'm going to stick with. I'm going to hit OK. And what I'm going to do is drag and drop this onto detail. Now, if I formatted my tooltips. Let me just bring those into my tooltips just to demonstrate. Put that there. So what I can see is if I hover over anything currently, dummy appears. And this is because we basically assigned the word dummy to everything in our view, meaning that everything has this one variable attributed to it. I can now create an action. So I'm going to go to worksheet, I'm going to go to actions, and I'm going to create a highlight action. And I'm going to call this dummy highlight. And what I'm going to tell Tableau to do is in this sheet, I want to highlight everything that has dummy attributed to it. Because everything has dummy attributed to it, it means I'm going to highlight everything effectively. So I need to make sure I select selected fields, and I want to select dummy. I'm going to hit OK, and now when I click on my bars, they move around, but I don't get that kind of graying out of everything that I haven't selected, which means that I can kind of see the impact of my set action trick a lot more powerfully than before. And that is my final tip. I hope you enjoyed them, and I'm sorry for coughing at everyone. Yeah, hopefully that wasn't too bad.
Thank you very much, Serena. That is awesome tips. So it's hard to select one. So I share a screen and we start vote which tip is your favorite from Serena, and I share. Okay, we can join, and I sent a link on the chat. Okay, so we start to voting, and okay, I think drag field in out of calculation with you write them is win tip. So so yeah, it's a very interesting tip and awesome. Yeah, too many good things, Agata. Yeah. So okay, so I stop sharing and we go to Danny. So Danny, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Dominic. Hi, everyone. Let me share my screen and I will get going. Do I get bonus points for Christmas jumper? No? Yeah? Awesome. All right. I'm glad I get bonus points for that. I did forget my Santa hat though. I was going to pinch my little boy's Santa hat. He had one for me. But yeah, I've stuck with the Christmas jumper. All right. So this is my first tip. It's a blank worksheet. I appreciate that. Let me dive into my something I want to show you. So how many people, and I can't see a show of hands, but I'm sure you will agree with me that lots of our stakeholders want to see tables of data, right? We work in data visualization and it excites us all very much, but lots of our stakeholders come from a table-based background, okay? Now, what we can do is kind of give them the best of both worlds by building advanced tables. So I'm going to give you probably, this is one big tip, I guess, with a few little tips here and there. But essentially what we're going to try and do is we're going to create something that looks a little bit like this, okay? Now, I'm not going to do the numbers and the bars themselves, but I just want to show you some little hacks that you can do to create kind of these advanced tables. And what this is as well, sorry, it's just reloading. This isn't with map layers, okay? So there's lots of talk about map layers. They've been around for a little while now. You can do advanced tables with that. But if you want to create something fairly quickly and simply without having to do those calculations, you can create an advanced table in Tableau really, really simply. So without further ado, I'm going to do the first thing, which is in order to create advanced tables, what I need to do is put placeholders onto my columns shelf. So what I'm going to do is do an average, and I know Agata used this earlier, but she used 1, but I'm going to use 0.0, and I'm going to do an average of 0.0 as a placeholder. Then what I'm going to do is actually drag that across. So I'm going to hold my command, I'm on a Mac, so I'll hold my command button, and I'm going to duplicate that across. And as I'm duplicating that across, what you're actually seeing is an axis here, an axis here, here, and here. Then what you're seeing is instead of having one marks card for all, we still have a marks card for all, but now we've got 4 different marks cards. And if we're really clever, what we can actually start doing is we can put our visualizations inside each of those marks cards. So let's do something really simple. Let's create a bar chart first of all. So let's say I want to do my sales. So I'm going to drag sales into size. Oh my God, nothing happened. Don't panic. We need to change the mark drop-down type from automatic. Now you'd think we would change it to bar and then put the height up, but that doesn't do anything, right? So that's really confusing. It's a bit rubbish. So let me just take that back off there actually because I'm on the wrong one. Let me go into this one. So sales onto size. And what you'll notice is as I'm dragging this up, it's probably quite subtle and down. But you see that it's like a dot here. So what we need to do is trick Tableau. So we're actually going to change this mark type to a Gantt to create a bar chart. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that back down. And now I've got my sum of sales is 5835. And we'll come on to some other things in a little bit. It's default, it's account D actually. So I'll just change that to sum. Sorry, that's a bit better. 2.3 million in sales. I think the company would have been in trouble if we had those little sales. So yeah, we've got our sales in there now. Okay. Then what we can do is edit our axes and we can name these dynamic. We can name these. We could do it dynamically, but I won't for now. But I'll just say sales. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is look at the number of products that we've sold. So because I've got an extra marks card, I can drag quantity onto my size. I'm going to change this again to a Gantt. And I've now got independent axes because I've got independent pills on my columns shelf. So again, I'm just going to edit the axes. I'm going to change this to quantity. So now we know how many we've sold. Okay, so I'll do another one. Let's do the discount. Okay, so the discount, again, I'm going to drag onto my size. I don't want my sum of discount. That makes no sense. So let's do average discount. And again, I'm going to change this to a Gantt. Okay, so you can see the theme here, right? So this is average discount. And I believe that's a percentage as well. So we'll change this to a percentage. So again, I can format all of these completely independently because they've got their own elements, right? So go to there, go to there. Oh, it's still not doing it. I'll have to change. We can change that afterwards. Let's make it a little bit more interesting though. What about if we wanted to do a different chart type in here? Okay, so most people that love tables are probably going to love pie charts. Okay, so, and I don't mind a pie chart. It depends how many segments it's got, obviously. But let's build a pie chart actually within here. So we have to do this. It's a little bit more complicated, but we can definitely do it. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is I need to make it overly complicated before I can simplify it to make it easy to build. So what I want to be able to see here is I want to see my profit ratio, okay? And I want to see my profit ratio in a pie chart. Nice and simple, right? Like just as a standard percentage. And I know that some profit ratios are negatives and pie charts aren't the best way to show that. Just forget that for the time being and just for the simplicity of the demo. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is drag my measure names onto color. Okay. Then I'm going to drag my measure values onto size. Measure values onto size. And I'm going to drag measure values onto the angle. I need to change the drop down of this to a pi. And I'm going to drag, my measure values onto angle. All right, cool. So now I've done that, obviously it looks a big hot mess, okay? But that's just the start. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to get rid of everything we don't need. So all I want here is profit ratio for now. So I will deselect everything else and okay that. All right, perfect. We've got a blob. Excellent. What I also want to be able to do, and this is kind of, again, like a little bit of a side tip, is if you're trying to create a pie chart or a progress bar, and it's only got one element, right? So you don't have the reverse of it, and you've only got something like profit ratio as a percentage. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Computer's asking me to sign in again. What you need to do is actually, you can create a placeholder, and it's just basically the reverse of the calculation. So you'll see here, our profit ratio is just sorry, let me zoom in a little. There we are. Is our sum of profit divided by our sum of sales. And our profit ratio reverse is literally the same calculation, just starting with a 1 minus. So it's just the reverse of it. What this does is it generates a placeholder for us. So what I can do now is drag my profit ratio reverse into my measure values card as well. And hey ho presto, I've now got a profit ratio, which is 12.6%. And that's across my entire data set, remember, because we haven't filtered anything yet. And we've got the reverse of that is 87.4%. Great, Danny, but like that's not super relevant right now. But that's not necessarily true. So what we can do now, let me just drag that off there because I think that's breaking something. I need to change that. Love a live demo. Now, where this comes into its own really is when we start adding the level of detail, essentially. Okay, so let's say we wanted to look at these 4 measures, and I'll just do this, as profit ratio percentage. Okay, let's say we want to look at this by state. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is go to my location, bring in my state, and drag that onto rows. Okay, and then I'm going to say, give me the entire view. All right, so now what we've got actually for every, and we can put this into a dashboard if we wanted to, right? And then we can make this long form. So let's just change this to like 2000. Okay. And all of a sudden, we've got a dashboard that, yes, it's a table, and we could add our numbers in there as well if we wanted to. But we've now got this advanced table where what we're doing is stepping our stakeholder into the world of data visualization. Okay. And now when we hover over any of these things, we can see that Alabama's got a profit ratio of 29.7%. Alberta's got 19.5%. Arkansas's got 34.3%. And then we can start to look and say, well, okay, what is our average discount? What are our quantities, and what are our sales as well? So yeah, that's essentially very quickly, that's how you build advanced tables without map layers in Tableau. And like I said, a big example of that is this here. So this is available on my Tableau public. There's a few more bells and whistles on this one, essentially. So we've kind of got this dot plot here. We've got pluses and minuses in terms of migrants. This is looking at world population data. You can actually click on any of these titles just using a simple parameter sort. It will then sort by that metric as well. So yeah, that's just kind of show you where it can get to, really. So that's my first tip, advanced tables. My second tip, and if you were at DataFam Europe last year and at the Slam, you would have seen this, but I will use it again because I do very much like it. How annoying is it when you have got lots of detail and lots of labels in one of your charts and your labels overlap each other, right? Tableau allows us to overlap our labels with other marks, okay? That's simple enough, all right? But it's very, very annoying when things don't quite work out as you want them to. Now, this chart I've got here, which is showing the breakdown of sales by the discrete year and the discrete month to give us this breakup here is working very well, right? I've got all those individual labels and it works brilliantly, okay? Now, you might have some more detail on that. It might not work so brilliantly. Like this example, for instance. So essentially what this is a dot and whisker plot, and it's showing the quantity on the y-axis, it's showing the subcategories on the x-axis, and every single dot is a customer, okay? Now, I can see from this that in furnishings, Jane Wacko has ordered 59 things within furnishings, okay? But a lot of my data is concentrated down here. If I want to give my user a bit more detail, I can click Show Mark Labels, okay? And I can choose min and max. Now, the first problem I've got with this is that the minimum quantity is probably going to be 1, okay? And I can't see that because my axis doesn't go down far enough, okay? My second problem is that my maximum value is always going to be at the top of the chart. And where we've got this nice disparity of data, okay, I can see the label. But where we've got things that are close together, I can't really see that that's 41. I can't see that that's 28. I'm really having to struggle with that, all right? So there's a couple of tips in here. The first one is to be able to see that minimum value, let's just change the axes, right? Let's fix the axes from a start of 0 to a start of -5, right? Let's do that. Okay. And now I've got my -5, and I can label my minimum value. And yes, it's always 1, but this is just purposes of a demo. But now I've given the chart breathing space, right? So we can actually show that the minimum value is 1. That's tip number 1. The second tip and the main tip of this is people don't know that you can move these labels anywhere you want. Okay, so my 41, now I'm not going to put it over here because that would be silly, but I can't see that 41. So why don't I just move it above, right? And I might want to try and get it in the middle a little bit, right? I can't see the 28. I'm going to click it. I'll get my crosshairs. I'm just going to move it up. I'm going to do that for all of these. All right. Great. Now, when your data changes, the labels that you've got here will stay where they are. Absolutely. So not great for dynamic viewing, generally speaking. But if you do then, say you put, I don't know, category onto here, and then you did just furniture, right? They are going to, we've actually got 2 there of the same value, so that doesn't help. But that 28 that I moved stays there. And if I undo that, or go back and remove my filter, they're going to stay there. So you can click and drag your labels wherever you want. Okay. Now, the great thing about that is that what you could change it in here and say, well, put all of my labels at the top, but then I can't see my ones, right? And if I put them at the bottom, right, they bleed into each other if I hadn't moved them. So like here, for instance, this 16 here, they bleed into each other as well. So this allows me to split them top and bottom. Yes, it's manual, but if you're doing a one-off piece of analysis, that is like it was a game changer for me. So yeah, so moving labels is my second one. My third tip is copy and pasting elements within a dashboard. So I didn't know about this until very recently, which is shocking really, because I've used Tableau since version 8, which is a very long time ago. It makes me feel very old. But what you can actually do, say if we want to put a page break into our dashboard here. Okay, so I don't want these. I've got borders around everything, but let's just say I didn't want borders around everything. Let me just turn these off. Okay, say if I wanted to put a page break in here and I didn't want to have a border, what we can do is that age-old trick, right? We can float something. We can float a blank, for instance, drag that in. I can then give it a color of this sort of gray. Okay, and then I can change the pixel height. Let's change the height of it to 1 pixel. Okay, now I'll put that into position somewhere around here. I'll drag it out, and I've now got a nice little break, okay, in there, and I can drag that wherever I want. Say if I then want 3 of those, what I don't want to have to do is go back to my dashboard, drag my blank in again, do all of that work. So what I can do is simply copy and paste that element. Now, I can't actually quite get hold of it because it's only 1 pixel high. So if I click there, I could. Another tip, if you lose something on your dashboard or you don't know where it is, just go to your layout, click on it, it'll highlight it. So what I can do now is, now I've highlighted this, I can Command and C or Control and C, Control V, and that will literally duplicate that element just using Control-C, Control-V, and I can now have another one up there. I could then edit that however I wanted. I can get hold of it and make it smaller, make it bigger, whatever I want to do. So yeah, that's one for me that I really, really like. Simple but effective, and really helps you out and saves loads of time as well. And then my final one for you is dynamic legends for maps. So I'll show you an example of this working in action, again, on another Tableau public viz that I built a fairly long time ago now. But let me just zoom into this. So it's quite a somber subject, but I just thought it was one a viz worth doing. So essentially what I've done here, it's probably going to reload. This is looking at fatalities in Africa and Asia around conflict, different types of conflict, changes in government, that sort of thing. Now, what I did was, with some help from Mark Bradbourne, was learn how to round up my latitude and longitudes. I'm not going to go into that today, but if you want to look that up, there's plenty of stuff online for that. So I rounded up my latitudes and longitudes, and this is actually a world map. Now, sorry, it's a map of Africa and Asia, and you can kind of see like the pattern there of Africa coming through and across to Asia. Because that wasn't very intuitive by itself, but I really wanted to do the rounding thing, which basically gives me a square for each area, I wanted to insert another map and have this map act as a legend. So when a user clicks on something, so if we click on somewhere, this is in Eastern Africa, I click on that, and what that's actually doing is it's bringing up the country of where that is in relation to the map. So that's Ethiopia. If we go further down and click on something down here, that'll be South Africa. If we go over to Asia, we've got some places over here. The label's not working for that one, standard stuff. This is Laos, and Vietnam's next to it. So essentially, that's the use case, right? If you've got this type of a map, but it works with other types of maps as well. So if I just jump back into here, what I've got essentially is a standard map, and this is looking at sales by state, okay? Then what I'm doing, because I only want to focus on the values of the states, but I'm not particularly bothered about the names of the states, and I don't want to clutter my map, okay? So what I want to do is be able to hover over any of those states, and then it show me what the state is and the shape of the state as well. Plus, I want it to give me a little bit of a drill down as well for that. Now, we could use map layers for this, but I find that sometimes map layers can be a bit obtrusive, right? There can be a bit too much going on, and I like to think that things have got a smaller ink to dashboard ratio. So what we can do is, I'll just show you how this works. I'm hovering over each of these, and we see in our bottom right-hand corner, we've got a map legend. And as I hover over that and change it, it's giving me a breakdown just to the right-hand side there. So there's no viz and tooltips or anything like that. It's just doing it a slightly different way. And it's then showing me the size of the sales in each city, basically. All right, so how do we do this? It's super simple. And the best way to do that is, if I just drag this off here, we need to create a map, okay? So the first thing we do is we will put our states onto here. So let me just kind of redo this. So let's double click on state, super easy. I love how easy Tableau makes maps available to build. Then we're going to change this to a map view, and we're going to drag our sales onto our color. And then we're just going to change the color because that isn't great. So let's just go, let's go red, okay? All right, awesome. So we've got that. What I want to do is I just want to focus on America. I don't want to focus on Canada. So I will just deselect Canada from there. And what I'm now going to do, so that's my driving map. Okay, that's the map that I've built. Let's create the map that then sits underneath that. I'll just add a label on here as well. And I'll do my sum of sales. Again, I don't know why it's default into that. So there's my sum of sales. So that's the map created. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. And this is going to be my drill down. So I'll call this drill down. And I'm going to take off sales. I'm going to color this to white. All right. I'm going to drag, I'm not going to put my state name on there. I'm going to go into my map, and I'm going to go to my background layers. What I'm actually going to do is, because these are actually marks, right? I've got 49 marks here. Each one of these is a mark on my chart, on my map. So if I wash this out completely, it will get rid of everything else apart from what I've got in here. Fantastic, right? And then all we need to do from there is we can add the extra details that we want. So if I want to look at sales onto, let's put city onto detail, and then I've got my sales, sum of sales on there. Let's just remove the labels a second, okay? And then all I'm going to do is drag my back to my map layers, and we're going to go terrain and coastline. Oh, sorry. Let me go back. Okay, so I've got those back again now. And then all it's a case of doing is, if we're going to here, is my dashboard actions, essentially. So all I'm doing is doing it on hover. Filter, hover action. So from my map, on a hover, exclude all values if we're not filtering to it, and then filter on the dynamic legends map. And then when I hover over anything, that's just going to give me that extra map. And there's loads of use cases for this as well. So that's my dynamic legends for maps, and that's everything from me.
Thank you, Danny. Wow, my brain is burned. So I love maps. So it's very interesting stuff. So join from QR code, or I send a link to join to the vote. And we need to one tips, so it's difficult. Okay. So we start to vote and select one. So it's very hard. Okay, tables wins. Really? I love maps. Come on. Okay. So creating quickly advanced tables wins tips. So I agree that it's two interesting tips. Thank you very much for Danny, Serena, Agata. Agata is 2020 December started 10 tables function. You never know. So Agata, do you want to add something?
Well, recently I just got the pleasure of speaking for quite a few different Tableau user groups. Thank you, Dominic, for giving me a moment to speak about that. And the one speech is still, the one presentation is still in front of us. I will be presenting from Armenia Tableau user group. The one I'm very befriended with, so I will be speaking for them for the second time already, and this will be something very much Christmas, as it will be on 22nd of December. It will be about the 10 Tableau functions you never knew existed and how to use them. And actually, there will be a small surprise. It won't be 10, Christmas number would be 12. So there will be 12. And if you feel it's something for you, feel invited. I'm sure our friends from Armenia will be very happy to see some more new faces, some new faces. So yeah, feel invited. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have a special information for people from Poland. We're meeting on site in 6 February. So save the date and we inform. And yeah, so I think we end. And thank you very much, Danny, Serena, Agata. And Agata, do you want to add something for end?
Well, I would like to thank everybody as well. It was lovely to meet again with this tip battle in the end of the year. That's always so enriching. So thank you both. Quite a few really tips that I will take with me. And let's see each other as soon as possible. All the best for coming Christmas. All the best for the new year. And thank you a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.